You now.
Welcome Joe Cool, tough as nails, walk the whole Appalachian Trail. Every peak and valley wide, Joe took them all in stride. Now she's here on TRS, sharing tales, will be impressed. Hiking strong with a joyful glow, that's the legend of Joe Cool, bro.
JC, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Did you love your intro or what?
Wow.
I honestly perfection.
That is Josh killing it, nailing it every time. Yeah, I loved it. I like the beginnings. I think we're going to keep using that music, but yeah. Welcome to the show. I want to welcome everybody. We've been on break over the colder months, and we're back, season 3. We had a great year last year. We had from where we started to where we finished up. We had people on the show that I never expected that would ever want to talk to us. Some amazing people. I'm not going to start naming names because I'll forget one. We'll get in trouble. But look back, you're gonna know some names on there. And this year we're starting off strong. Hiking season has started, and I happen to know somebody personally who has hiked the entire Appalachian Trail. She goes by the trail name Joe Cool. We're going to get into how you can get a trail name, and you got to earn it. JC, welcome. I'm so glad to have you.
I'm very happy to be here. It's definitely not a walk in the woods, but a seat in the rocker.
Well, I've heard a few stories, and I've actually intentionally not heard them all. All your stories are great. So I just wanted to, before we get into some of the great stories of you on the trail, who were you before you were on the trail? Let's go back to say college. What type of person were you? Who would you ever have been somebody you thought would walk the entire trail at some point?
Oh, geez. The beginning. Sure. So honestly, it started when I graduated high school. I went to Australia, and then I went to Alaska in the same summer. And from both of those experiences, what I took out of that was definitely more from Alaska. I was just like, man, there is this world out there that exists that I can go exist in and be whoever I want to be and struggle in this crazy, these changing environments. And I love it. I love that. I want that struggle. That's the struggle that I want, to exist outside of, I guess, what we would call reality, and go somewhere else and be someone else. So fast forward, I go to college. My freshman year, I took a Maymester course, and that course was environmental art. And that it was all about just creating beautiful things in nature, using nature. But the end of that course, we took a 2-week hike on the Appalachian Trail. We went to the Grayson Highlands. Our instructor was amazing. Carrie LaCharity was her name. Yeah. So she took a group of, I went to Chatham University. It was an all-women's college. So she took a group of young, mostly lesbian, all fantastic. I think there was 10 of us all together. We went to the Grayson Highlands for 2 weeks. And our purpose going there was to create art. So we build cairns, we, picked leaves and made designs. But I was getting this whole other experience during that time of realizing that I'm on this trail in the woods, and I can't get lost because I'm going to follow these white blazes. And this trail, I'm on it for a solid 2 weeks, never being in the same place twice.
I love it.
And then, and so it was just this realization that I can come back here after this trip. I can come back here at any point in time, get on this trail and walk for months. I can walk for months. I could walk for years. I could just keep going back and forth up and down the trail. but in my mind, it was like I could disappear. I could go away. I could remove myself from
The fantasy.
reality
The
and
big
go
fantasy,
to this
yeah.
place. And so, I went back to school. I finished college. I'm at this point in my life, I've only dated women for the majority. I was a little punk rock. I had this like mohawk going on. I always had a leather jacket. It was like this cool little thing. I graduate college. I get a marketing job. Within a few months, I hate this job. I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? This is terrible. Life is terrible. And then I remember there's this trail that exists
That you don't hate.
that I don't hate, and that I can go and disappear and be what I want to be. And so in my mind, I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. So for the first time in my life, I walked in to the job that I had. I walked up to my, manager at the time, and I quit. I was like, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. And then I get back into my 93 Cutlass era.
That quick? Was it really that quick? Like, I'm done. I'm out. Like,
that was it. I quit that job. My parents had bought me a backpack when I graduated college. I threw that backpack into my car. I drove to REI in the South Side. I walked into the store. I walked up to the first employee that I saw. I held up this backpack and I said, what do I need to fill this with to get the hell out of town?
Jeez, you're like an after school special at this point, though. You know what I mean?
So got it.
They just hug you like, you don't want to do this, like, or like, did they load you up?
So this was a guy. He looks at me, and he goes, where are you trying to go? And I say, well, I know about this trail. It's called the Appalachian Trail. And I know I can get on it and I can walk for months and I can be out there. What do I need to fill this bag with to get out on the Appalachian Trail and get the hell out of here? That's what I kept saying. I want to get the hell out of here. I want to get the hell out of here. So this guy tips his hat down and points at it. And there's this like big A with a T across it, right? And alongside of the hat, it says Appalachian Trail, Georgia to Maine. And he goes, I think I can help you with that. So he introduces himself. He hands me his card. He says, my name's B-Man, and I'm going to help you hike the Appalachian Trail. And I take that card, and he says, he gave me, he says, this was in, what month was this? This was in like July. This was in the summer. He said, the beginning of September, I'm taking this older woman out for a tune-up hike to hike the state of Maryland. He's like, here's her number. Here's my number. Call her, call me. If you want to find out what you need to fill this backpack with, like, come on this trip. That's where it started. I said yes. Because I quit my job. I was like, the next opportunity that presents itself, that's what I'm going for. I had this idea in my head about the trail, and the very next person I encountered is now my husband. But also is the person who set me on this path.
Like, if there are threads of your life, like somebody at that point was like, all right, she's messed around enough. Get her on, like, this is where she needs to be. Like, you just like a record scratch across where you were going in life to this. So like, dated women, worked in an office, angry little city punk girl type thing. And then 100%. You're like, I need to be in nature and I need to meet somebody who cares about these things. Like, that's
100%. Now, knowing this now, what I see it as is, and I talk about this a lot, it's the need to eject yourself from reality to reset your mind. And that's what I was unintentionally doing. I was trying to eject myself from my reality to reset everything. I needed a reset. I was so unhappy where I was in life. I couldn't understand why I was where I was. So in my mind, I needed to be physically somewhere different, but also moving in forward progress, right? And where better to do that than on a trail that is designed for
doesn't
nothing
end.
but forward progress. It's terrible.
Yeah. I love it. I can't imagine my life changing that quickly, that fast, but I have to get on to the next part, like the part where, all right, B-Man is help. So I don't want to skip that either. So B-Man's in your life. What are those next months before you get on a trail like?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, he had to talk me out of not running away. So I took him up on the offer to go hike the state of Maryland. Here I am in my young punk mind. I'm like, I got to ride. I got to ride to the trail. I'm going to pack my bag. I'm going to hike way beyond where these guys are going. They're hiking the state of Maryland. I'm just going to keep going. Right? I have this whole idea in my head that all these people were to me at that time was an out. It was an out. I had it.
Wow.
They were giving it to me. So I took them up on it. I got, and my gear at that time, like, I went to my parents' house and like rummaged around through all their old camping stuff. I got, an old ass sleeping bag that was super crusty. I had
that smell.
I don't even know if I had a camp stove or anything. I was very, very ill prepared. But in my head, I didn't care. I was like, no, I'll be good.
Did you have the 90-degree green army flashlight? Takes like D-cell batteries. It's just
probably yes.
Light of like half a candle power.
Yeah.
You're ready.
Yeah, like 6 pounds, just that one thing. 6 pounds. Yeah. Everything I had was super heavy too, but I had a really nice backpack. So I'm filling this really nice backpack with this really old gear that was worn down. Whatever. I didn't care. So I get in the car. Drive down to Georgia with these people that I don't know. And we hike. We get on the trail and we all started walking. Now, I realized pretty quick how ill prepared I was and how out of shape I was. In my mind, I'm younger than these people. There's no way they're going to be able to keep up with me, right? I'm just going to go. I'm out here doing myself. Oh, I also had I brought a lot of weed with me. Am I allowed to talk
of course
about
you
that?
did. Yeah.
I did. And I had some other things too. So I had all of these things, and I'm totally prepared to just be on my own, having fun in the woods, living my life. Day one, knees.
At this point in your plan, did you have an end game at all? Was it just like, and then we'll figure it out, or was like, hopefully I'll be near a town where I can get a job waitressing or stripping, and then I get more money and I do whatever? Nothing? Like, it was just whatever. I'll figure it out then.
I had no plan. I had no plan. One second.
Yeah, I got it. That's fine. Hey, this might be a good time for... Oh, go ahead.
Telling my husband he's got to come get his kid. So, I'm so sorry.
You're a mom. We just skipped to another part in the story, but like we let this. They can't. You're a mom. It happens.
Sorry about that.
It's fine.
Anyway, so I didn't have a plan. My plan was eventually get a job, find a town, get a job, see if I liked it, keep walking if I didn't. That was kind of where I was at.
Okay.
It was like it was like the second day. The first night that we went out, I felt good. Set up my tent, which was so old that the waterproofing no longer worked on it. Like it's like an old backpacker's tent that my dad hitchhiked across country when he was in college with. And this is what I have.
It's going to be just as good. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. So that first night, we got B-Man, myself, this older woman. Her trail name was Red Up, we called her. And at that point, I was still just Joe. Everyone just called me Joe, right? And there was a third woman who came with us. Joanna, her name was. And she met us there. And in my head, I'm like, oh, this is B-Man's girlfriend. And she's coming to hike with us. So that first night we did like 4 or 5 miles. And we're on the border of West Virginia and Maryland. We set up camp like right past the border. And I set up my tent. Red Up's got this hammock. She's struggling setting this thing up. And Joanna doesn't have anything. So B-Man's over there and he sleeps under just a tarp, right? So just a top, no sides or anything. So he sets up his tarp and he sets up, you know, Joanna's sleeping bag and everything. And he puts her under there. And I'm sitting there like, oh, how cute, you know, bringing his girlfriend on this hike and or whatnot. And then he leaves. And then we have the 3 of us who are like, I didn't even have a sleeping pad at the time. I was just literally in a sleeping bag on the hard
You're
ground.
in a bad situation.
This other woman like can't set up her hammock. So she's sleeping like this, like her whole thing, her whole setup was just like this. And then this other woman, he sets up under just a tarp. She's never slept outside in her life. And she's like exposed to the elements and just like, what the heck? Like, what am I doing out here? I didn't realize that they didn't know each other either. So I'm over here like, oh, how cute. And meanwhile, like they barely knew each other. She was just out there also
of a mini series on Fox.
So B-Man flipping leaves. And I fell asleep I was like, whatever, you know, I better get used to this. It's cool. So the next morning we wake up and both of these women were telling me, they're like, we were so comforted by your snoring. Like I had such a hard time going to sleep last night, but you were snoring and it was great.
Reminded me of Dad.
Made me feel so calm. Like I didn't have anything to worry about. Like, great. So B-Man does reappear and we keep hiking. And it was on that second day I realized like my knees gave out and I could not out hike. Oh, Joanna also left the next day. We got to a road crossing where her car was parked originally.
Fortunate.
And she left. She couldn't do it after one night. She was like, nope, not for me.
Found out.
Sleeping out in the woods. Yeah.
It's not for everybody.
So, me, B-Man, and Red Up, and we're hiking. And I couldn't get past him. I could not hike faster than this man. So every time I stopped to take a break, he's sitting on a rock. He's sitting on a log right there. So we ended up getting to know each other. We liked
awesome.
all the same music. We liked, we both smoked. We liked hiking.
How did he get the nickname B-Man?
A-Man is a little too arrogant. And who wants to be called C-Man their whole life?
I call JD a C-Man all the time. Yeah, but I like it.
Yeah.
Facts.
There is
form of humiliation he digs.
There's probably a bigger reason behind it, but he won't tell you.
It's fine. It's fair. I might not want to
I shot my shot. I wanted to know.
You now you know. So at what point did you get comfortable on the trail? Now you guys 4 of you stay on. Let's keep this going. Yeah,
that was nice. Honestly, even on that trip, I was comfortable in the woods. It's uncomfortable, but at no point did I feel like this isn't something I can do. Even on that trip, I felt like I could still keep going. I was just really upset at my body that my body couldn't do it.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
I'm also upset at JD's body all the time.
It's like, why do these physical limitations have to happen? I'm like, I was distraught. I was like, man. So one of the conversations I had with B-Man early on was like, you know, yeah, this is something I want to do, but like, how am I going to do it? I can't even walk 10 miles. How am I going to go 2,000? And his response, everyone hikes their own hike. no matter how slow, fast, you could crawl it. A blind man hiked it. I hiked with him. His name was, his dog's name was Vision.
Of course.
What
It's a
the
great
heck is
name,
his
but of course. I mean, it's descriptive,
Yeah.
right? I
Yeah.
like it.
And so
The-
it was just like I had the confidence. It was going to go slow.
Was this part of the whole hike, or did you do that at a separate time? Was this?
That was in Maryland. That was just the state of
Yeah.
Maryland. Just the state of Maryland. When I finished that hike, we finished at Penmar Park. It's the Mason-Dixon line. So Maryland, Pennsylvania state line. And Penmar Park, at the top of Penmar Park is a place called High Rock. And High Rock, you are standing on High Rock and you're looking into West Virginia, Maryland, and Pennsylvania all at the same time. It's like a snow globe up there. It's gorgeous. You can also drive up there. There's also like a government place back there. Something that's connected with Camp David, that there's this like secret road with all these like dark window tinted SUVs that drive back there. And you can't walk back there. Like you walk back there 10 feet, like some dude in camouflage comes out from behind a tree and is like, you can't come here.
I listen to those people. I call me a wussy. I don't care.
There are
Even
a
if
lot
they're
of
not
places
really-
like that. No, there are a lot of places like that on the AT though.
Really?
Like where they do military trainings. Yeah. Nerve-wracking
That's gonna
stuff when you're in the woods, and then this like, I mean, they come up in silence and a whole like team of army dudes just is like surrounding the shelter that you're in, and you just see like one move behind a tree and then you realize that they're completely surrounding you, but they're just doing training exercises, right?
On you.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Or when the stealth jets come flying, when you're on top of the mountain at night and you're just like trying to sleep under the stars, and then you just hear this sound that's like aliens coming at you, or the end of the world, or meteors, and you come out of your tent and you see nothing but darkness, and it's because it's a freaking like stealth jet just like cruising across the top of the mountain. Just training. They're just training. But
See how close they can get training.
Yeah.
it's
Training.
wild.
It's insane. That's awesome.
It is.
It sounds amazing though. Like those are the nights you also get to live through, I guess, in some cases. I've never been that deep in the woods. Someday I hope to be. It's another reason you fascinate me, is just that being on your own thing. And you did a lot of the trail solo, right?
Yes. B-Man was with me. So, fast forward Maryland, come back. We stay friends and connected because he's like, I'm going to get you on the trail. He convinced me not to leave that day, go back to Pittsburgh, make money, live on my couch so you don't have to pay rent. I will personally drive you down to Georgia and drop you off in the spring to start your through hike.
And this person you met on the worst day of your life
was also the best day.
Yeah, taking applications, because let's go.
Like
I know three people might be interested.
Your book's first chapter, the best day and the worst day of my life. Like it's right there. I love going back to it. But okay, so
yeah, so he fulfills his promise. He fulfills his freaking promise, right? And we went on a couple like trips where we went camping through the winter so that I could experience like winter hiking. I'd end up getting like a photography job in the South Side. I had a car, he had a couch. We ended up becoming friends and just coexisting.
Okay.
No romance, nothing of that nature. So we drive down to Georgia. He takes me in a bus with this dude, Geek, who's driving the car. Geek is a trail legend as well. You should get him on your show. He through hiked the trail with a cat. With a cat that he found.
I just want to say must be the coolest cat in the world, because I've never met a cat with any sort of patience for that sort of stuff.
his name was Ziggy, and he was smart enough. He got really fat on the trail because he did all the mice out of the shelters. But he would actually ride.
Cats now?
He would ride on the top of Geek's pack. Like he would climb up and just sit on the top of the pack and ride.
I'm in
Geek
love.
and Ziggy. They're in the Appalachian Trail Museum. You can read about
They
them in
stuffed
the
them?
AT Museum.
Oh,
Oh, I wish.
man, that's hard.
Magical animal. I've never seen a cat.
No, Geek
Yeah,
is still walking this earth, and you should we should invite him on this show.
Absolutely.
That'd be a great story.
Geek, come on the
Protect
show.
that
I'd love
man
to
at
hear that
all
story.
costs.
Yeah, he kayaked from Pittsburgh down to Florida, and then he hiked the Florida Trail, and then got to Georgia. He hiked, and that he found the cat somewhere in Florida, I'm pretty sure. Like found this kitten, and then got on the Appalachian Trail, walked from Georgia to Maine with the cat, and then with the cat he biked from Maine back to Pittsburgh.
As one does.
So, like-
Yeah.
Yeah, of course he did.
Yeah.
Sure. I know
That's
the other day I
amazing.
was thinking about maybe I would walk all the way to the store, but I didn't. I did park far away, like in one of the back spots, because I was trying to get my steps in. Yeah.
Yeah,
this stuff amazes me. I love it. I love it. This is absolutely, I know it sounds like I'm making fun, but it's 100% jealousy. Like just, I admire it so much. I really do. Like the ability and the mental fortitude above physical, like the mental being that okay with your own thoughts for that long.
That's what it is. I mean, you have to learn to sit comfortably with yourself, because when I got dropped off in Georgia, when you start walking, you start thinking, because what else are you going to be doing, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you're thinking, and you think all the thoughts that you could think about your entire life leading up to that point, right? And then it's like you hit 1,000 miles and you have thunk all of the thunks you can think. What the hell are you going to think about now?
This is how Klingon languages get invented. You have nothing left to do. Did I just
It's
piss off a
amazing.
bunch of Trekkies?
And
Sorry.
but that's where the reset happens, right? That's where you can truly reset yourself and figure out, okay, this is who I am now.
This is what I want.
That's who I was, and I thought about it long enough. Now I have another 1,000 miles to figure out who I want to be. And that's and in my opinion, every person who walks this earth should walk a long trail to get to that point of their individuality.
I've walked many miles in like not anywhere near what anybody who's even done part of the trail has done, but I've been on very long walks, all throughout the night type of walks, and I haven't thought all the thunks, but I do know that little you rethink your life. Like you think, why am I here? What am I doing? And as much as I've always loved the nature of being outdoors, I love that part, and I always try to take it in and notice it, even if I'm miserable and going somewhere I don't want to go. I remember those life-changing, just like, you know what? Think about what you're doing and why. And that seems has to be a lot. But what's it like the first night alone on the trail, though? Before you reach that 1,000 miles, what are your thoughts that first night?
Everybody, I don't care how much experience you have, everybody turns to their dumbest self that first night.
What do you mean?
Just a given. I mean, like, you light your camp stove upside down, you try and hang a bear bag, and you like get your Nalgene stuck in a tree on day one, right? Like, and you're like, what do I do? You can't remember how to set up your tent, and you accidentally break one of the poles. You light your sleeping bag on fire. Everybody turns dumb on that first night, and everyone is worried. And it's very hard to eat because you're nervous, but you need calories, and your body is going to break down if you don't get them. And it's very hard to sleep because all of that nervousness is built up inside of you, and you just burn a freaking hole in your sleeping bag that's supposed to keep you warm, and the temperature's already at like 20 degrees, and you're like, what the hell am I gonna do for the next 6 to 8 months of my life? Like, how am I gonna survive? And then you eventually pass out just from sheer exhaustion. And then you wake up in the morning and you pack your bag and you keep walking. Regardless of the direction, if you're like, you know what, this isn't for me, you still got to walk out. Like,
do you think there's a percentage of people that turn around after night one?
Oh, 100%. It's not 100%.
No.
Yeah.
But that can't be. You did it. So
there's certainly there's actual there's numbers on these, like the people who quit at what points. In Georgia, when you start in March in the spring, that's when most people will start the Appalachian Trail in spring, and the majority of people start in the south and hike north. And Georgia in the spring, number one, it's not spring, it's still winter in the mountains. Sure. I walk through freaking snow drifts that are like I walked through snow drifts in the Smokies, which is in North Carolina, that were past my waist. So yeah, it got cold. But most people go
roughly 75% of people who attempt to hike the Appalachian Trail do not complete it.
There you go.
I was wondering, like, from day one,
Can you find out how many people quit on day one? Is that a statistic?
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, we're going to ask ChatGPT.
I do want to point out
deep. Oh, sorry.
I do want to point out while you're looking this up that in no way am I making fun of anybody who quit even after day one. Anyone even attempting it, you're better than me, honestly. And it's an impressive that you thought to do it, that you wanted to do it, that you tried to do it. And if it wasn't for you, it wasn't for you. If you physically couldn't do it, whatever it was, I think you're an amazing person. And I mean that, like, just, it's great that you tried.
So that actually that brings up a good point. And this is something you learn very early on in the trail. It's like the number one rule on the trail: hike your own hike. And you let everyone else hike their own hike. If they want to yellow blaze and jump in a car and skip 30 miles to get to the next point, yellow blazing is when you skip sections of the trail. You get into a vehicle and you skip a section of the trail. You don't go back to it. That's yellow blazing. You know, you're
Thank you, Joe Cool. I appreciate that.
You got that. Yeah. So who are you to judge? They're not hiking your hike. You might be a purist who's going to hike every single mile, even the ones that are closed because of bear attacks or wildfires. Right. You're so purist, you're going to walk through that anyways. It doesn't matter. You're hiking your own hike. And that's the number one reason you go out there and do it. You're ejecting yourself from reality and resetting yourself. So following someone else's hike, pink blazing, trying to do something that's not righteous to you.
You're not going to ask?
It doesn't happen that often. I mean, pink blazing happens a lot.
We now have to address what that is.
As long as there's a person with a pulse, there is absolutely pink blazing happening somewhere on this planet.
I mean, you gotta clarify the term, I think, at this point, because today was the first time I've heard it. We probably will have people watch this. So, and it'll now be in the Google Chat GPT.
I'm going to do this the best.
Do it in the form of song. Okay, go.
The best.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. Pink blazing. Pink blazing is when a hiker chooses to route their hike to follow a woman. So they want to always be camped next to this woman. They want to be in the same shelters. They're going to hike the same miles. They're going to take breaks at the same time. They're going to, that they're going to go into town together. They're going to be like, hey, you got to go into town. Yeah, I got to go into town. Let's go into town.
I'll make sure you're safe.
Which also, as a woman alone, never go into town by yourself. But you would recognize, if you have any inkling of men what is pink blazing and what is people looking out for people.
I think
And
it
it's
should be a term
convoluted, too.
applied everywhere, by the way. It should be applied everywhere. And I just want to say, guys, if you see a woman exercising, she's not trying to meet men. Period. Just leave them alone. In any type of exercise. How about if you see a woman, just leave her alone?
Can I ask a really dumb question? Because that's kind of what I do. You mentioned a woman should not go into town alone. I would think that is the one place where it should be safer, you know, as opposed to alone by themselves. But why wouldn't that? Why would not town by alone? What am I missing here? Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly you don't want to do any, like, you know, groups are strong, but like, I just, what makes that unique?
So
sorry, dumb question.
There's
No.
not a dumb question. Not a dumb question. I was always taught, thanks to B-Man and other hikers who I met on the trail, that I should always strive to
Plan
camp.
B, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I should always strive to camp 10 miles from a road crossing. And that's going to put me at a far enough distance that any riffraff or, you know, anyone who's looking to cause any sort of trouble, knowing that the trail is there, they're not going to go 10 miles into the woods to look for me. If I'm camped next to a road and a car slows down, I'm freaked out. I'm alone, and I'm, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
The other parts about specifically about going into town is, first of all, how to get to town. So when you're hiking the trail, town is usually several miles from the trail.
Right.
So when you get to a road crossing, you're usually at the highest point in the road and the lowest point on the trail because you're in the mountains.
Right.
And in order to get to town, you got to go the full way down the mountain. Yeah. That typically requires hitchhiking unless you walk alone. Regardless if I'm walking alone on the side of the road or sticking my thumb out, if I'm by myself, I'm in a state of danger as a woman alone.
Sure.
And there are people who know exactly who's walking up and down that road and what they look like if they're off the trail. Like, they become a target that they know to look for. It's like polar bears looking for penguins.
Locals absolutely know that the trail is there. And this comes in two ways, right? So here's one thing. As a hiker, you're praying for a road crossing so that there's trail magic there, right? You're going to get to that road crossing and there's going to be a couple sitting in lawn chairs with a cooler, a PBR, cooking hot dogs on a little grill. And you're going to walk up and they're going to be like, welcome, here's a have fun. Do you need a ride into town? This is called trail magic.
How often is this? First off, I want to commend these people, but how often would you say? These days, it is so abundant in the South. Like, there is so much trail magic in the South because the trail is heavier down there. Not as many people have dropped off. And these are a lot of times passed through hikers who are coming back and paying it forward. They're trying to help other hikers keep going. And a lot of times they're locals. A lot of times they're hostel owners. You know, they're bringing the hikers to their hostels. They're letting the hikers do work first days. They're it's a community. I mean, it's a full on every part community. One of the most famous trail angels out there is Miss Janet. So Miss Janet is famous. She has a bus, right? She has a bus and she'll drive up and down the Appalachian Trail. Now, Miss Janet is an angel. You see that bus, you hear that horn, and you're coming to a road crossing, man, woman, gay, straight, like, you see that bus and you're like, that is safety. That is home. Miss Janet will make sure that I get what I need safely. So you get to know trail angels. You get to know trail angels. There's other in Duncannon, Trail Angel Mary. Trail Angel Mary is an angel. She takes hikers to her home, lets them stay at her house, feeds them breakfast. Wow.
Holy smokes. Now that's like,
It's
yeah,
possible.
hold on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
There's a
Wow.
whole it's a community. It's a large community. It feels large when you're in it. But at the same time, you talk to all of these people as a woman alone, they're going to tell you, be careful. They're going to tell you, don't camp near the roads.
Right.
Go 10 miles into the woods. These are women. These are angels.
Fantastic advice.
It's so amazingly simplistic the way you put it, and it's you just don't think about something like that. It's like, your average, a predator isn't gonna go 15 feet into. They're gonna stop me like, that's too much work. Like that is crazy that's the mentality, but it makes so much sense when you think about it. Like I don't want to take us down a huge downer, but like, yeah, you just totally spelled it out for me. I appreciate that because that's like one of those things where. I mean, anybody, female or male, like just go in the trail, make sure you're off the beaten path. And I guess not off the beaten path, but yeah, that's crazy. Anyway, sorry. That's just, that's amazing. So,
yeah, definitely want to stay on the trail. Oh, and that's the other thing. So another way that hikers look out for one another, you get to a shelter, there's always a log. You sign your name to the log. Now, here's something interesting. My trail name is Joe Cool. And I've always chosen to spell that Joe, which is typically the more masculine version of how you would spell Joe. Like growing up, my name shortened, I was always called Joe. It was always spelled J-O because that's, I guess, the more feminine version of it.
Women can't handle that extra E,
I definitely can. But
I think you can. I believe
early on, someone had made the comment to me, and I never thought about it until later on in the trail. They considered me signing my name Joe. They were like, oh, are you doing that so that people don't know that you're a woman hiking alone? Sure. And I was like, whoa.
There are a lot of female authors that use like a first initial, middle initial, last name, or a totally made up name, a pen name, because if they're selling sci-fi or certain genres of book, it's just easier to make people believe you could be a man instead of a woman because it works. Just a simple name, slight change. Yeah. Yeah.
Is that why people spell like Jeffrey with a G so nobody wants to talk to them? Like, oh, he
spells
his name with a G. Fuck that guy in particular. Right?
Yeah, no. So, nobody likes
makes
that.
sense.
Wait. That's one of our first guests on the show was Jeffrey Asmus.
Yeah, but he would say fuck himself too. Like, I mean,
he would. He probably hates it. Hey,
demonetized.
Demonetized. I wanted to talk to you about your trail name. How do you get it, and where were you on the trail? How far were you along on the trail when you got it?
How do you get a trail name?
You don't have to tell us how you specifically got yours because there's something in there.
How
There's
anyone
a big
gets
laugh on the screen
you said
right now.
Wait, I am allowed to say the F word, right?
You can fucking say fuck.
Because here's the advice that I was given.
Queen of the forest?
You can build 1 million houses, but if you fuck one goat, you're a goat fucker. So when you're on the trail, it's like the first thing you do that someone recognizes you for. That's going to be your trail name. So, and you can, a lot of times if someone's like trying to force a name on you, they're like, I think you're this, I think you're that. And you're like, no. And you pass it by. But then like the next day you accidentally wipe your ass with poison ivy and someone's like, poison panties. That's it. You don't have a choice. That is what you're known as.
That'll be somebody talking about you at your funeral by that name. Poison panties. What? Tell me that story.
So it's a cautionary tale, really.
So do you want to share your story, Queen of the Forest, or?
You know what? Mine's a little bit. No, it's a little bit sad, but the end part is basically I was dressed in all black, leaning against a tree, smoking a cigarette with black sunglasses on, and someone was like, "What's up with Joe Cool over there?" Because I wasn't talking to anyone. And I was like,
That checks out.
Sure.
that'll be my name. I accept. I accept. That's all it took.
I mean,
I
that's
was
not
literally
bad.
going to say, so
I saw-
trapped in a loony bin literally said, smoking Camel Wides. I was going to say that. I go, Joe, cool. Was that because you were smoking unfiltered, Camel Wides? And no. Yeah. Same.
No, the actual reference is to Joe Cool, Snoopy's
Snoopy.
alter ego, Joe Cool. Yeah.
Had to be
who
Snoopy
is-
because Snoopy rocks.
Yeah. It was the sunglasses. It was
Yes.
not the cigarette. But a lot I've gotten that a lot. It's the
No,
camel.
Looney Bin and I, we figured it out. That's what it is. That's canon. That is canon.
I saw someone else say though Queen of the Forest. So
Yeah.
much
That was
later
Elliot
on
Frieden.
and yeah. Oh, Elliot was actually with me the first time I ever stepped foot on the AT.
Awesome.
That was in Grayson's. Yeah.
Thanks for showing up, Elliot. Glad you're here.
The best man in my wedding right there.
That's awesome. Like, so we're going to get to the end of the trail, and I have a question for you. But yeah, continue. Queen of the Forest. I got to hear this. I'm like a little kid.
So the gear that I hiked with, I started out with the tent. It was a 2-person tent, and I had a sleeping pad that was inflatable. Mind you, this guy that I met that promised to get me on the trail had also hooked me up with some awesome gear. So like my base weight was like 13 pounds or something.
Wow.
Without food and water. Like that's all I had. Food and water, I was probably rocking like 27, 28 pounds total. Like that was wild back then. This is over 10 years ago. Like that was light. That was go light. So I have this sleeping pad that blows up, that folded up and slipped into this little sling, and it turned into a chair, right?
Right.
So I called that that was my my throne. Now I also have, are you ready for this? I'm going to put it on actually. This is my favorite piece of gear. This is my sleeping bag liner. And I use this like a baby blanket, and also like when I would get to camp, I would just wrap myself up in it, or I would tie it around my waist like a skirt.
Yeah.
And so I had
you're not
this,
Snoopy, you're Linus.
I had this like look about me that was quite regal in camp, right? Regal. And then I would set up my tent. I enjoyed cowboy camping from very early on.
Can we say that? Can we say that? Is that acceptable?
Oh my gosh. So I would set up my tent, and I wouldn't set up the actual like tarp part of the tent if it wasn't raining. I would set up just the poles so that I could wrap my Christmas lights around it, right? And I had these Christmas lights too. I had a set of Christmas lights that were battery powered. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had Christmas lights. I had this freaking throne. I had this freaking like body wrap thing that I put around myself. And so like people are like, oh, it's fucking Joe Cool, Queen of the Forest. Eventually I got a palace. I traded out my tent for a tarp. Because I wasn't
moving on up.
And yeah, my tarp was 11 feet by 7 feet. It was seal nylon, so it weighed less than a pound. But like it was an instant dry spot. And then I had a piece of Tyvek, like the stuff they put on the sides of your houses, like when you're building a house. Okay. So I had a piece of Tyvek. That was my ground cloth. So I had my tarp, I had a piece of Tyvek on the ground, and then my amazing sleeping pad and my sleeping bag, which was 100% waterproof. And I know that because I got flooded out in it.
I mean, you never think about it until after it happens the first time, right? Like, am I in a bad area for water? It's never happened to me yet, but I don't look for it. Like, what happened?
That time, actually, B-Man was with me. He was visiting me. We were too close to a road crossing, number one. Too close to a creek during like a 3-day downpour, and decided to sleep in the same spot 2 nights in a row. So that's what happened. The creek overflowed. We were totally flooded. Like I woke up in the morning and all I remember is like reaching my arm out and it just being underwater. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm underwater. But inside of my bag, I was dry. Like
That's a
I
great
wasn't
bag.
wet.
It really is a
I
great bag. Like,
know. I know.
I mean, you said waterproof.
Yeah.
I figured like you had a little water on the toe, but no, that was
No. Waterproof. Yeah. And my sleeping bag,
washed
was
out.
it was inflatable, so it kind of just floated a little bit there. It was
Hey,
fine.
free ride. So we're running short on time, and I wanted to get to the end of the trail. I could talk to you all day. I really could. The end
We're
of the
not even
trail,
out
but
of
before we get
Georgia.
to the end, something else changed in your life that I do know about that I kind of want to make sure we get into the story. You had a surprise visitor one evening.
Oh, wait, are we talking about the end?
The end.
So, okay, so much happened in between that.
There's
even
so
a
much.
whole
Like
other,
we could talk about bears. We could
even
talk about Bigfoot.
a whole
But
other
I
year
don't want
went
to.
by.
We'll be all night if we go there.
We'll get there. Give me 1 second. A whole other
Okay.
year goes by. I'm hiking up north by myself without B-Man. I'm getting into all kinds of trouble because why wouldn't I? I'm so much fun. Joe Cool. Woo!
Queen of the forest.
So I'm up in Maine. Couldn't tell you exactly where, but I was hiking with like 7 or 8 guys at that time. And we're camped one night and they're all under my tarp. I have this 11 by 7 foot tarp, right? And all of them are sleeping under my tarp. And in the middle of the night, I wake up because I hear all this rustling. And I'm like, and we're close to a town. We were close to a town. So I wake everyone up. I'm like, someone's in our camp. Someone's trying to steal our shit. Everyone wake up. And then I turn and look and I see lights coming through. And I'm like, hold on, they might be hikers. Like, and then this cowboy hat dips down under the tarp. And I hear a voice say, honey, I'm home. And
Why
I
you
was
with
like,
7
holy
guys?
shit. Holy shit, it's B-Man. It's B-Man. So I get out of this tarp and then all of these guys have to they all get out with their tails between their legs. Like, oh, it was raining. They didn't want to set up their tents. So they all had to get out and go set up their tents. And they're all like, oh, I guess B-Man's here. We all have to leave, which they did.
Yes, you do.
Which they did. And then we ended up finishing that hike together, which included the 100-mile wilderness, where we really tested the bounds of our relationship during that, because that was, we ran out of food in the 100-mile wilderness. And we had 60 miles to go.
A little hangry.
Yeah. So we did great. We really did. We got to the end of the 100-mile wilderness. My dad met us at Able Bridge. We hiked, the 3 of us, me, B-Man, and my dad, the finishing mountain of the trail. It's Mount Katahdin. So we all summited together. And at the summit is where B-Man proposed. And
here you are.
Here I am.
It's amazing. I know we had to get to that point, and I feel like we rushed so much. And again, we never even got to take questions. And if anybody has questions, I know a lot of people here actually know you. Maybe they want to put you on the spot, but we don't really want to go there.
I saw Plan B's name in there, though. Or I didn't see his name, but I know that that's him with the
Plan B is definitely in here. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey,
Plan B was
thanks for joining us.
He is my best friend on the trail.
That was one of my final questions. You gave a lot to do the trail. You gave up a life. You changed your life. What did the trail give to you? When you're home, right now, looking back, what did the trail give to you? Because you've mentioned friends and family and B-Man, and what else? Or what are all the things that it did for you?
Oh, everything. Everything. Yes, it gave me people. It gave me people for sure. It also gave me understanding of myself. And I don't know. I think you had asked me before, what's it like coming back off the trail? And honestly, it sucks. It sucks because you're going from ultimate freedom back into reality, which you've just ejected yourself from, right? And you've reset your
managed to
mind and you're in
escape.
and you're in such a good place, and then you have to go back into it. And the hardest part, but it's the most important part, is not forgetting who you were on the trail and bringing that with you and living that way in real life, meaning you're hiking your own hike. You are empathetic to your fellow hiker because you're all traveling the same journey. You're all tripping over the same rocks and stumbling over the same logs. It's like, it's having this mentality that you've lived so real on the trail and bringing it back to reality and making that your reality every day, regardless of the trail that you're walking, whether it's the city or it's the suburbs or you're on the corporate, the corporate ladder or whatever it is. You just keep the wholesome goodness that you had to sit with yourself with, right?
You're amazing. You're amazing. I mean, I know you had a lot of time to think about this, but yeah, it's amazing. I love every word you're saying. And I think if there are people out there wondering if they should go, it sounds like maybe if you're thinking that thought, maybe you should at least give it a try. I don't know what's some final advice if somebody's interested in going out on a trail the first time. What's some advice you would give them? Just starting points. Like what do they need to know? What do they need to bring? What's that going to look like?
You call me and you call B-Man. That's where you start. 100%.
Okay. We will get if you come to us, we'll get you put in touch.
I mean, anyone, all I did was walked into an REI and asked the first person that I saw. And my recommendation for anyone who wants to do it is go get fitted for a backpack. Start there. Get fitted for a backpack because that's all you need. It's the things that you choose to carry.
What's something you carried with you that you will carry with you for the rest of your life?
Physically?
Yeah.
I learned how to play the ukulele while I was hiking.
Oh. You love it?
And I carried one.
That counts. That is amazing. No. And that ukulele will be with you forever.
Yeah. Some things that I hope are with other people. That's a really deep question, and I'm going to get silly on this for a second. So
go.
If someone were to ever ask me for a cigarette on the trail, like, hey, you got to smoke. Can I have a smoke? My response would be 2 rocks and a stick. Meaning that if they wanted a cigarette off of me, then I got to pick up 2 rocks and 1 stick that they would have to carry for the rest of their hike. And there were people who asked me quite a few times for a cigarette, and I gave them many different size rocks and sticks. So like, you want a cigarette? It's 2 rocks and a stick. And they took it. I'm curious if they still have them. If they were like, oh, these were the rocks and sticks Joe Cool gave me so I could smoke cigarettes.
Like, did you do it? And do you still have it? That's great. I would love to find out. If anybody has kept their twigs and berries, please let us know. No, that's wonderful. Like, I also like that, like, there's a cost to it. You got to pay something. I don't want your money, but there's a cost. Like, like it's small little thing, but think about what you're asking me to give up too a little bit.
That's some good advice though. Hold on. That's some good advice. It's not free or cheap to hike the trail. No, you said you were putting a cost to something.
Yeah.
And that's something that I did is before you do it, save as much money as you can. I think when I went out the first time, I had maybe $2,000 saved up. I ran out of money before I got to New York.
Was that hand money or was that like to pay for like back home expenses, like a car loan or something?
No, not back home expenses. That's expenses to live. So, I'm only carrying enough food for like 5 days. So every 5 days I got to get into town and resupply. That's a lot of money. And then of course, like you're going to want to drink beer. Every time you go into town, you're going to want to eat more and more and more. Your food bag gets heavier and heavier. The more calories you need, the farther you go. It gets more expensive. You got to replace your boots. There's no way one pair of boots is getting you from Georgia to Maine. Like at some point, your shoes are just going to be done. It usually happens in Pennsylvania. But
welcome to PA, the Keystone State.
It's rocky.
So, hey, we got to have you back because there's a lot more stories that we have to get to. I know there are. I've heard a few. You're an amazing storyteller. Your ability to keep on thread from beginning to end of the trail has succeeded where all of us have thrown you off, but you've kept us on the way of the trail. You are a master trail and storyteller. I hope and sincerely hope that someday you write a book and let the world know, because you have so much good to put back in the world that I want to hear about.
And read it. Do an audio version because you're very animated. I really enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for trusting me to come on here. I know this isn't something you're used to doing, so thank you.
Definitely not. This is my first time on podcasts.
Podcast, show, interview. I don't know.
Uh-oh.
We just
that wasn't for you. Sorry, that was a laugh because I have not done some things. Anyway, we'll move on.
Oh yeah, we're technically not.
It's great.
We haven't podcasted anything. We're a video show and live broadcast. We will be a podcast someday, but we're having fun doing this.
Do you want to hear one final story?
Yes, please. It's your time. I'm trying to we can go all night, but
more than I want to breathe fresh air. Absolutely.
Thank you, Elliot.
I'm not.
Thank you.
This one. Okay, I'm gonna tell it. It's gonna be great. Okay, so Sasquatch, right? I was on.
I'm all in. Let's go.
Thousands of miles. Okay, so Sasquatch. I never saw him personally. However,
guys, it got to be a him, guys.
Are you ready for this? There was a time me and B-Man, we were hiking with a couple guys. I'm not going to say their names. So we're hiking with these guys. One of these guys we see in town, and he's at the post office, and he just had a package delivered to this town. And he opens the package, and it's a freaking gorilla suit, right? It's like but it's like legit looking. So he has this gorilla suit, and he's like, you two are the only people who know that I have this, and I'm going to get someone, and you're going to see. So we're like, all right, dude, like, we're the only people who know. So a couple months later, we're at trail days, and me and B-Man and we had already been told at this point by another dude that this guy with the gorilla suit he was like, I'm about to do this to this guy, and did it. We're at trail days. This guy comes under me and B-Man's tarp. He's like, Joe Cool, B-Man, I need advice. I think I saw something, and I don't know how to tell anyone, and I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. And he's dead serious. We were also tripping pretty hard at this point. However, he's telling us, he's like, I saw Sasquatch. And I can't tell anyone else. I'm so afraid no one's going to believe me, but I saw, he was there, right there. I was with this guy whose name actually is Forrest. We'll talk about him. I was with Forrest, and
Forrest Gump.
We saw him. We saw him, and he was right there. And he's telling us this, and we're sitting there
tripping.
Just like,
as one does.
We believe you. We believe you. That's what we kept telling him. We believe you.
Why would you lie about that?
We never told him. And we never told him. And nobody ever told him. This guy ended up getting off the trail like a month later. I hope
to God he's here and he's finding out right now. Oh my God.
He had no idea. And to this day, unless he's watching this, or if he watches this someday, and that's going to be his saving grace, or it's going to be like the most terrible thing that ever happens. We'll see.
But you say he left the trail.
He left the trail. That doesn't mean he didn't leave the universe. He could still watch.
No, but I mean, would he be upset? Did he leave the trail because he thought Bigfoot was going to kill him, and that's why it ruined his whole hike?
Possibly.
I hope.
Hey, Plan B, if you're still here, can you send a text out to somebody? You and I both know we go way back. Yeah, and tell them to come onto the show right now.
Bigfoot.
Is there a
No,
term for doing the trail with the sole intent of fucking a Sasquatch?
Yeah. Oh. I think that's called the
Wait.
brown. What brown? Sorry.
Brown blazing.
Brown
Yeah,
blazing?
just looking for a Sasquatch to nail.
The old BB is what we call it, JD.
Brown
Yep.
blazing.
We're gonna do the old
Oh, God.
brown blazing.
Do you run into like people who aren't necessarily doing the whole trail, but they're on it as part of a Sasquatch or other type of cryptid hunt?
Oh yeah, it has to. I'm sorry, cryptid hunt. Oh man, you're throwing some
Yeah, man.
new terms in there. Yeah.
You know what? Yes, but I don't know. I've met much weirder people than that. Like there's
Well,
much
now we're
weirder,
stopping
there's
everything. What's
there's
weirder?
much stranger
Let's go.
people
What's
out
weirder?
there than cryptid hunters. Like
Give us your
I-
weirdest shot. First, top of mind,
Let's go.
weirdest shot.
Let's go.
Oh,
This is
Get on
awesome.
the bonus material for Patreon.
Oh,
someday.
I have two. I have two. One of them's really creepy, and one of them is just weird.
We're gonna find out
Just
what
a weird
green
dude.
blazing is, boys. Let's strap in.
No, the weirdest guy that I met, we named him, his trail name was Hippie Jesus, which we thought was funny because it was like
Redundant.
Wait,
redundant, right? Okay, so this guy was, I think his real name was Kevin.
typical
He was
special
like-
K. Yep.
He was living in the woods, and when we first came upon him, he didn't talk. Like he just kind of like danced and gestured. So he when I first came upon him, like he was like gesturing to me and like making all of
As
these
one does.
movements.
As,
But
as
he had
one
showed
does.
he
Yeah.
showed up where I was camped. He showed up with two other guys who were southbounders. They were going like a different direction than I was. And they were just like, we don't know who this guy is, but like he's been hanging out with us for the past day. And so he's just like gesturing to me, and I'm like, okay, I'll come join the fun. Let's see what's going on
Sure.
with this guy. He doesn't have a shirt on, and he just has these like very dirty pants.
Yeah, like a
and
hippie Jesus
very
would,
long
yeah.
hair. Very long hair. Yes.
If you
Hippie
told
Jesus.
Chat GPT and even Deep whatever, they would both come out with the photo of that person you're describing to the T. Yeah, absolutely.
So he comes over and he's gesturing, and then he proceeds to show me that he has this like pile of mushrooms sitting like
Oh, he's my
I'm
best
sorry,
friend.
they were
All
like in
Not
they were in
surprised.
like this stack. Not those kind of mushrooms.
he didn't
just- they
praise.
were like-
Now I'm surprised.
They were like
now I'm
The hen,
surprised.
they were like the hen of the woods. And so he's pointing at these mushrooms and then pointing at the fire. Like these guys had built a fire. So he's pointing at these mushrooms and he's pointing at this fire. And we're like, what do you want? Do you want to like cook the mushrooms, or do you need to borrow a pot with some water? And he's like, yeah. So then we're like, okay, here's a pot, here's some water. Well, he takes that and then he starts going, he like legit just starts going through all of our stuff, ripping out our food bags and just like ripping through our food bags.
They're like
taking out all this
vampires. You
stuff.
give them permission to have one thing, they think they could have everything.
If you just
We
gave him
did it.
water, you guys would have wine. I mean, you're not seeing where the story is going. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave
Ah.
hippie Jesus the wrong gift.
Yeah. Some
So
loaves and
he's-
fishes, and you guys would be set.
Maybe some
Instead,
myrrh.
you had mescaline and like some Birkenstocks, and it's not going to go the way you think it is. So,
So like he's digging through your stuff.
He does cook. So he ends up cooking these mushrooms and he cooks us these forest burritos out of like random things out of all of our food bags combined. And like
Was
these
it good?
mushrooms that he had found.
Was it good?
Yes. But I was
Forest burritos.
listen, I was so scared to eat it because I don't know mushrooms. And I'm like,
Sure.
I don't know what
Fair
this
enough.
guy picked.
Valid point. Yeah.
Or if he knows how to pick
didn't know.
mushrooms, did he get him off the one wood that the real ones would never grow on?
Yes, he pranced.
He pranced.
100 all of the time. So the
There was
next
no
day,
picture
so
in my mind where
I
he was
end
not
up-
also prancing.
I was the only one. Like these guys are just like letting him. So he continues to like go through our food bags, and he took out like this one dude's jar of peanut butter and just starts like licking it off of his hands and stuff. And I was just like, nope, I'm done. I'm going to bed. Goodbye. And so the next morning I get up and here he comes. I kid you, prancing over to where my tarp is. And he's like gesturing for me to come back. And at this point, I kid you not, the dude has like flower petals in his eyelashes. He is just
Beautiful.
like covered
He
in
is
nature and just
a
prancing
genuine
and
loving.
gesturing me. So I'm like, oh my God, I need to get water and I need to get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
So the creek, he's gesturing me like towards where the creek is, and then he like veers off and he's like showing me this thing that he built. And I like look over and he built a toilet seat. And I was like,
Terrible place to
oh,
stop, but I just want to clarify. He's pantomiming this, right? Like we are full
Yes.
on like, okay.
He's never said a
Just wanna
word
make
this
sure
whole
we're on the
time.
same page.
he's doing these movements like
Of course,
come
yes,
this
yes.
way,
Feng shui,
this
pantomiming.
over
Yeah. Tai Chi,
here.
pantomiming.
He built a
Come
toilet
on.
in the woods.
Yep, I'm sorry.
And
I'm
he
sorry.
was
Yes,
like-
go on.
Where
It
was the
kept seeming
GoPro?
like he wanted me to like sit down on it. He was like trying to get me to like
Sure.
take a turn on it, and I'm just like, no. Like,
you
I
have a
don't
camera.
know.
I know your Jesus
I'm
hippie
good.
ass
Like,
has
I'm
a
good.
GoPro.
So then
waterproof
he
mod.
proceeds then to take his own pants down and sit down on it. And, like he's
To
like
show you, in
showing
case
me.
you didn't know how
He's
to poop.
showing me.
Yes.
This is how you do it. And I just walked away. I
Yeah,
walked
Nope,
away.
the
I
fuck out.
didn't get water. I just packed up my
Did
stuff
he
and I
say a
left.
word the entire time?
No.
I hope he had like a
Not the
deep
entire
baritone
time. Not the
voice.
entire time that I knew him.
Really? Yeah.
And I knew
I
him for
love
the
this person.
entire
knew him. Wait.
the entire
long?
next day. Listen, the entire next day. This guy, he doesn't have a pack on, right? He's not carrying 30 pounds. He's just galloping through the forest with nothing.
Was he real?
He is.
So wait,
he's
listen
living-
to this. He had a sack, right? That he had these mushrooms in. But the next day on the trail, he didn't have that sack. And then at one point, and this is like 7-8 miles later, he
Yeah.
comes prancing out of the woods and he has this book that's made out of tree bark that has like, he's like taking note of all of like the foliage in the forest. And like,
Mhm.
it's like this book and he's like showing it to me and he's like, look, this book.
We need to
and I'm
find.
like,
We need to find him.
I want that book. I want that book. I will
I
buy
mean-
that book. Get that guy in front of me. I will mortgage the house.
Yeah, clearly you don't play Skyrim because this is obviously an NPC from this, and they're just there's.
He was
book,
going to
there's
send
the
you on a
book.
quest.
Yeah, and you would have got a really cool staff like with +5 agility, but instead you're like, this dick doesn't speak. I'm out. Like, yeah,
Or maybe the important part of the story is that you really don't know your mushrooms, and Kevin never really existed, but you did eat those mushrooms.
Yeah, you ate mushrooms that day. Like, how do you know his name was Kevin if he didn't say a word?
guys.
I swear it's Kevin. It
Yeah.
has to be.
Oh my god!
It has to
didn't
be Kevin.
speak.
I promise.
Deep down inside, Kevin's the friends we made along the way.
That is the most legit question that I've heard. Though is how do you know his name's Kevin? Because now I'm questioning.
All things awesome will now be
The
referred to as
entire
Kevin on this
experience.
show. It's
Just Kevin.
now
We
written in
Kevined
stone.
her. We
That's a Kevin moment.
But
And,
Kevin-
yeah.
Kevin
Oh.
is your first of two stories.
Please tell me that was not the creepy one.
No, that wasn't the creepy one. He was
Thank
just
goodness.
weird.
Sounds like a nice guy, honestly.
No, it's
Other
a
than
great guy. I
pulling
would totally
his
chill
pants
with
down.
Kevin. You know, I'd probably
Yeah.
use hand sanitizer, which I never use because
Yeah.
you know, but before
Yeah.
eating a forest burrito. But yeah.
You know, no. He
I
used
dig it.
moss.
That sounds
He
dirtier
used
than I think you
moss
meant it.
to
That's
wipe-
true. Yeah. Good old
He used
Wait,
moss.
can
moss
you
to
say-
wipe his hands. He also
Can you say eating a forest burrito like a little bit slower?
eating a forest?
Not you,
burrito.
no, Dan.
Oh,
It just sounds
Oh,
dirty
dude.
coming out of his mouth.
Nope, I'm not. Josh right now has got his finger on the clip button. Not happening. I got this.
I shouldn't have said anything. Oh my gosh.
No, it's okay.
no,
It's gonna
you're
get
fine.
clipped anyway.
No.
Yeah.
We'll get him saying
The
it.
cr- I'm
What
trying
I
to
just said right there, that's gonna get clipped. See, this is how this works: is you have to live in a perpetual state of anxiety when you hang out with these guys. They're my best friends, and they're monsters. So that's why I like
Thank
hearing
you.
stories about hippie Jesus.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Second creepiest interesting time on the trail.
Whew, this one's creepy. I like to tell this one around Halloween, actually. But I was alone for probably like 8 or 9 days. It was quite a time period. It felt like that I didn't see anybody. I saw not a soul. I didn't talk to a human.
Did that affect you?
It was over a week. Definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched the show Alone? Like, that shit's real. Like, you don't talk to another human or interact with someone. Like, yeah, you're honestly, you're in yourself. It happens after 2 days, but this was like a pretty long stint that I hadn't seen anyone. I hadn't talked to anyone.
Right.
And I typically didn't like to stay at shelters because I like to camp. Shelters, there's usually mice, there's other people. I like to, be off on my own.
You're camping for a reason.
At least for sleeping, to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like, people snore. People are annoying. I was going to sleep. Anyways.
I did a lot.
So I was craving human interaction, and Punch Bowl Shelter was the name of the shelter. I could not for the life. So I guess it's in Virginia, but I get to Punch Bowl Shelter and it's gorgeous. Like, there's a little pond and there's like this big flat grassy space that I'm like, oh my gosh, that's perfect, with these 2 perfect trees to set my tarp up. And as I'm walking up to it, I get this like terrible feeling that I'm not alone. And someone's watching me. And I was just like, man, do I go to the shelter or do I just keep hiking? I needed water. So there's a water source there.
Sure.
So I'm like, well, I'm at least going to get water and then I'll go. So I'm walking up to the shelter and I just have I've got a weird feeling, but I did it anyways because I was dumb. And I walk in front of the shelter and I turn and I was like, oh, holy shit. There was a guy sitting in the back of the shelter, just like hunched up in the corner of it. And so and his eyes were like so big. And I'm taken aback. I'm like, holy shit, someone's in there. And then I look and I'm like, okay, he's got a backpack. He's got trekking poles. He's wearing boots. I'm like, okay, he's a hiker.
At least, yeah, not a townie. Yeah.
Right. I'm like, okay. So I'm playing it cool. And I'm just like, oh, hey, how you doing, man? How long you been at the shelter? And he's just like crunched up in the corner. He's just like, I can't leave. I can't get out of here. Can you help me get out of here? I can't leave. And I'm just like, oh, okay.
Right. What do I do?
I'm actually waiting. I think I told him like, oh, my boyfriend's coming down the trail. Like, I used that. I was like, oh, my boyfriend, he's
my boyfriend would be coming to back me up. You kidding me?
I'm not staying. I'm hiking out. And then he gets up and he's like, can I leave? Can I leave with you? Will you take me with you? Will you take me with you? I need to get off this mountain. And he starts saying something about the noisy neighbors. He kept talking about the noisy neighbors. Like, the noisy neighbors, they won't leave me be. Like, they won't let me go. I can't get off this mountain. And I'm just like, dude, oh God, like, you need to stay here. So then I'm like changing my tune because I don't want him following me down the trail either. So I'm like, you know what? It's really nice here. I think I'm gonna spend the night. I think I'll stay. And he's like, okay. I'll stay with you if you let me leave with you in the morning. And I'm like, sure, definitely. Like we'll stay. I'm gonna go set up my stuff. Like, you stay here. And he's pacing back and forth in the shelter, and he keeps going like, get out of my head. Like, leave me alone. Let me go. And I'm just like, holy shit. I was so freaked out by this guy's energy and like just what he was doing.
I'm
like,
freaked out with how you're telling the story.
So I actually pulled out my cell phone. I turned it on and I started walking like on top of these like boulders that were near, and I'm just like trying to get service, right? I ended up getting enough bars. I called B-Man. Like, he was the number. I call him and I was like, what do I do? And he's like, hike out, grab your stuff and start walking. And then I'm like, okay, all right. So I told the guy I was staying the night. So I'm like, I'm just going to go get my stuff and I'm going to leave. And he just kept following me around. He was like in tears at one point. And I'm like, this guy's like, he's on an acid trip, or that's what I'm like. He's
hopefully at the very least, it's just acid. Yeah.
I'm like, he needs to just sleep this off. Like, I'm not the person to be here with him though. Like, he was way too erratic. So I pack up and I dipped, like, and I could hear him when I got back up to the trail. He was screaming. He was screaming at like the top of his lungs, like, get me the fuck out of here. And I'm just like, holy crap. So I hike out and I'm in a panic, and I'm hiking, like, at this point it's like 8-9 o'clock at night. Like, I went until midnight. Like, I just kept walking, and I finally felt okay. It's like I got to this road crossing. It was like I was out of that forest. I can't remember what national forest that was, but I was out of there. I was crossing a road, and I remember there being a sign that I was like entering a different national forest. When I crossed that road, I had this like weight just lifted off of me. I was like, okay, I'm far enough away. I feel good. I feel fine. So a couple days later, I'm hiking up the Three Sisters Mountains, and this guy comes like right at sundown. I had already set up for camp, and I see this headlight like coming up the hill, and it was a hiker. And so he's, you know, other than this crazy dude that I just saw in the shelter, like, this is the first person that I've interacted with in now about like 13, 14 days. So I'm like, you know, he comes up and I like kind of wave him down. You know, I had a little fire built that had gone out, but I had still had some coal. So I was like building up a fire, telling him to come over. You know, drops his pack. His name's Crank because he cranks out miles. And
did he give himself that name?
Probably not. No.
Okay, no.
I only hiked with him for one day. I only hiked with him for a single day. Actually, I hiked with him the day that I was with Hippie Jesus. It was that next day that Hippie Jesus showed up.
Everything comes back to Kevin.
Hippie Jesus.
Like I said, guys, everything comes back to Kevin. This will be canon. This will be this show.
This guy though, Crank. So I'm like, dude, have you seen anyone? Like, who have you passed on the trail? Because I'm like, at this point, I'm far enough in the trail that like, I know the hikers that are out there, who's around, who's behind us, who's behind me. And he's like, I had the craziest experience. And I was like, okay, tell me about it. So he tells me he gets to Punch Bowl Shelter, and there's this dude there that's like freaking out because he can't get off the mountain. And he told me that his name was Music Man, the crazy guy. He was like, and I stayed there that night. This is Crank talking. He's like, I stayed there that night, and I, you know, the next morning, because I told him like he could follow me out. And he was up the entire night, just like talking to the walls, like talking about these noisy neighbors and not leaving him be. And he said, the next morning, you know, he got up and he hadn't slept at all, this dude. And he said, you know, and we hiked and we got down off the mountain. He said, but it wasn't until we crossed the road into, I think it was Jefferson National Forest. He's like, when we crossed the road, he was like, I kid you not, this guy, like, he crossed the road, he dropped his pack, he turned around, he looked at me, and he was like, thank you. And then he looked at the mountain and he was like, fuck you, you'll never hold me hostage again. And he looked at Crank again and he was like, I feel like a fog has been lifted. He was like, thank you so much for getting me off of there. He was like, that was wild. That was wild. He said after that, they had this like great conversation about music and how he got the name Music Man. He plays all these instruments and, you know, and he had told him, he was like, how he felt like he was trapped up there by like these, you know, it was something spiritual, like had a grasp on him. He could not leave. He said he tried to leave. He said the day that I ran into him, that day he tried to leave the shelter and ended up going the opposite direction that he was supposed to, like 10 miles, and having to turn back. And he ended up back at that shelter that he was just like, and he said it happened twice, actually. He was like, it happened twice that I left and I went the wrong way and I keep ending up back here. And he said, I wonder
if there's like some psychosis trigger, like some way the mountains look or something that just triggers this psychosis in the, I'm an amateur at the, I don't like, but when he got off the mountain, he was normal and able to have conversations and was
Totally
lucid about
normal.
what he was like up there too.
That is
Totally normal.
I don't think this is creepy. I think that's phenomenal. Like that is
That's a hell of a
The way-
story. I still think
like,
you did the right thing. You absolutely did the
course.
right thing.
Oh,
Getting the hell out
100%.
of there. Yeah, like
I mean,
he might have been in
that's-
distress, but you weren't the person to help him. You know, like
somebody
No,
completed
no,
the
no,
mission,
no,
and
Yeah.
they
no.
took care of it. Yeah.
I know what I can and cannot handle at
Right.
moments like
Yeah, that
that. I
was-
could not handle that. But when the next time I got into town, like, and I had internet and everything, and I freaking Googled it, and Punch Bowl Shelter, was a murder shelter. Like, someone was murdered there in like the 80s. So
And that man was
then
Kevin never
Then
I was
existed.
Kevin.
He
freaked
was
out.
in your head the entire time. This is awesome. Sorry.
Yeah, it was the next day though, after hearing that ghost story around this little fire with Crank. The next morning is when we meet Hippie Jesus. Or no, it had to have been the next
Amazing.
evening. It was the next day because I was with
so you
Crank.
had at
when
least
we
some
met-
levity in your life.
and then-
Some.
Yeah, after all that,
I mean,
you're like,
listen.
oh, finally.
Joe, glass half full. Music Man hates garbage music. He would have been like, and then I liked Limp Bizkit and Cold Chamber, and they shaped my life. And then you'd have to listen to that literally for like 2,000 miles. You didn't want that. You didn't want that. Listen, Crank took care of it. He was a good egg. I like Crank. He completed
Crank,
Music Man's
no.
thing.
Yeah.
Music Man, I'm pretty sure he got off the trail after that. Like,
I
He was
honestly
really-
hope
he was
Music
done?
Man's okay.
He
And
was
if
done.
It's
anybody
such a good
ever-
story, though.
Yeah, I want
Sorry,
to
Kim,
find out
sorry.
if Music Man turned out okay. Like, I'd love
Yeah,
to hear
like, I
what
wanna-
really happened or what he thinks
Yeah.
happened. Like,
His part
I'm
of the story.
fascinated
That's
by
the
that.
greatest part. Yeah.
I don't want to
you have
hike with him. I
many
don't want to hike with him.
side-
But
the main character, which is Joe, and then you have all these side,
you
I
have
mean,
a
side
story. Please put it in a book.
Yeah,
That's my job here
Yeah,
now, to get you to
right.
write that book.
you're gonna
Oh,
bully
God.
her into.
Hey,
You're
before
cool.
we go, this will be my last question. The obvious one is, do you want to go back in the Appalachian Trail? Of course you do. Do you have any other trails you really want to hike?
I plan on the PCT is going to be my retirement. I would like for that to be like my later in life hike.
I hear it's more brutal in some ways. No, never mind. It's not. It's the opposite. Never. I've
Well,
heard
I
two different
mean,
stories
there's
about it.
you're going to have elements are completely different. You know, you got a lot of desert on the West Coast to begin with,
Yep.
and then you have the high Sierras. It's like, you know, there's dramatics
More
to
elevation.
it.
Yeah.
More elevation. However, the grade at which you're walking, the PCT was designed for pack animals. So it's a much easier grade. So you're going longer miles to get higher elevations, but you're not jamming the crap out of your knees consistently while you're doing it. Whereas like on the East Coast, they thought it would be cool to make trails that just went like straight up and straight down, like over the tallest
Here's your trail. Good luck.
part that you can. Which now, you know, obviously in recent years, they're discovering that that's actually really bad for the environment and erosion is not a good thing. And so they're rerouting the trail. And that's why the Appalachian Trail is actually getting longer every year because they're continuing to reroute it around these kind of
That's.
straight up.
I'm glad
peaks.
they're thinking about these things. You know, like just like, is this good for the? Can we make it better for the environment if we move people over to the left a little bit? You know, like I think to even think about it instead of, well, that's what it's always been. That's what it'll always be, which tends to be how humans operate a lot lately. Is keep it the same.
I love that last word, lately.
Lately.
Yeah. Yeah.
I see it more and more. I want it the way it used to be. And the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't. 80s were cool and all, but so hey, I really want to thank you for coming here and talking to us. It's been amazing. And giving us the extra half an hour and two amazing stories. Thank you
Sorry.
so much,
Not just
Joe Cole.
awesome.
No, thank you. I love talking to you. Thank you so much. Let's get the heck
Thank
out of here.
you.
And
This has been great.
thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Let's play us out, JD.
Elliot Fagan with the real Sasquatch. All right. Hey guys, it's 2025. We did it.
We did it. Season 3.
Oh my goodness, that is quite a question.
Oh, you are so funny. That is so true. You're like the only person that's ever asked me that question.
I'm really glad that you noticed that you pointed that out.
So I just want to give you a shout out and say it's appreciated.
It's been so fun chatting with you guys. I didn't realize how late it got.
I'll always talk to you guys.
Thanks very much. And again, you guys are super well prepared. You got your act together. I hope you continue to get more viewers. You deserve them.
You guys, you were the first podcast to bring this up, and I'm impressed. I'm really impressed.
Thank you.
Bye.